Welcome back to Tears for Fears. I'm your host, Megan Schaup. You can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS, and we are doing a very special Thanksgiving Tears edition this week. And I am super excited and very thankful to be joined by Remy Cote. You can follow him on Twitter at Remy Cote. And this guy is a mass multi-entry Tears player. He's been playing tiers for years. He's been playing, full slate, short slate. He's got experience in both. So if you haven't checked it out yet, we just taped a short slate strategy. Probably a good episode to watch before even you watch this, because it just goes through the short slate strategies and nuances. So be sure to check out that episode. Be sure to follow Remy on Twitter. And Remy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to talk about some Thanksgiving tiers.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I said this on the other show, but you should probably listen to this guy because he just won the Flea Flicker last week. So again, congratulations again, Remy. And you're going to try to, run it back this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're good prize pools this week. 20K up top again. Very steep payouts. I think second place gets 5,000.
Right. So it goes 20 to 5.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a real steep payout. I think it should have been maybe 15,000 at first, 7,000 the second. Just should have smoothed it out a bit. But
yeah,
always fun to have a big money up top.
Right.
To go ahead and grab that.
Right. And we not only did he win the Flea Flicker, I mean, he obviously does very well in tiers. So again, you should listen to this guy. Not only did he win last week in the main slate, but last Thanksgiving, we were talking about on the show before this, talking short slate strategy. You came in second on the Thanksgiving tiers, correct?
Yeah. Well, everyone finished in second last week. There were a lot of dupes.
So you tied with a lot of people. Yeah, but you said it was very interesting that the winner was a solo winner and a solo entry, correct?
Single entry solo winner for $20,000 last season with a really out of this world lineup. So that's key.
Right.
Try to get
again.
Different.
Check out our short slate strategy episode. Remy went through some of the nuances of the winning lineup in the Thanksgiving episode. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more here too. But that's what's interesting about short slates is sometimes the lineup doesn't always make sense. But you have to get different. You have to get unique if you don't want to tie with a lot of people. And that's what hopefully we can help you guys do today. So we're going to jump over to DraftKings, and I'm going to pull it up now, and Remy and I are going to go tier by tier and kind of just talk it through. I mean, he and I are probably still deciding and analyzing and looking at projections. And I will have an article up tomorrow, Wednesday, on fanspeak.com. So check out fanspeak.com for tiers article, tier simulator. You can, play around with that, and that should hopefully help you make your tiers lineups for Thanksgiving. But let's go tier by tier here, Remy, and kind of talk it through. So over in tier 1, we have, of course, Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, and Kirk Cousins. Give me your initial thoughts on this tier.
Well, the first thing I like to do is look at the Vegas lines, and like probably most of the people do. If you don't have access to projections, always, you can rely on the Vegas lines to give you a good idea. Highest total of the week is, I see a massive total. Buffalo and Detroit again. Mm-hmm. So Josh Allen is obviously the highest projected player in that tier. He's going to garner a lot of ownership. So great. Obviously, if you're playing a cash lineup, play Josh Allen.
Right.
If you're playing in the GPP, you will want to try to get different elsewhere.
Right. Okay. So that's kind of what I was thinking too. And something I noticed last week, and obviously in your winning lineup, you didn't have Josh Allen because he, only had, I think, 12 points last week. You had, you said Jalen Hurts as your quarterback in tier 1 last week. They seem to. I want to rewatch the Buffalo game. They seem to be running a little bit more. I'd like to see the pass rate and everything. He's got the elbow. So I'm not saying that Josh Allen can't still have a Josh Allen-like ceiling game, but, in tournaments, like I will still have exposure, but I think I'll look to get different. I'm guessing Dak Prescott will be the second highest owned, but Dak Prescott is my favorite play. Who would you say outside of Josh Allen your favorite play is?
If I had to build one lineup, I'd probably go in that tournament in the main GPP. I'd play Dak Prescott also.
Right. Okay. Well, let's put him in. We're going to go ahead and we'll kind of, as we go through this, talk through who would be like good cash game or single entry plays. But if we were only building, 1 to 3 tournament lineups, who we might lean towards. So
Sure.
we'll build a tournament lineup and we put Dak Prescott as our quarterback, tier 1 play. So over to tier 2, we have Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, and CeeDee Lamb. All I can say is I played Saquon Barkley at an alarmingly high rate, both in tiers and classic last week. And whoa, did that hurt bad.
I can never get Saquon right.
I know. Isn't
hurt me a
that
lot this
weird?
year.
In all forms of daily fantasy, you have those players where it's like you can't get on the right side of them.
Yep.
It's like, at least I have these players where it's like when I don't play them, they go off. When I do play them, they stink. So
yeah, Nick Chubb and Saquon.
Yep. There you go. Those are 2 for me too. So, so what are your initial thoughts on Barkley and these 3 receivers?
Well, my first thought is all the players in T2 are correlated with the players in T1. So you could all match them up. So you have Josh Allen with Diggs, Daniel Jones, Saquon's not a receiver per se, but he does get targets. So he has some correlation with Daniel Jones, Prescott with CD, and Kirk Cousins with Jefferson. So I'm putting a lot of thought into this, whether or not I'm just saying the hell with it. I'm going to match every single quarterback with its receiver and try to get different elsewhere. Or I might get a little crazy and play, say, Allen with Jefferson.
Right.
Now, is that viable long-term? I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't done the math, but it could be a way to get different.
Right.
That being said, we're playing Prescott. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb.
Sure. I would say the exact same thing. I think I'm leaning towards my 2 favorite in this tier are Lamb and Diggs. And yeah, I think in this lineup, I think Lamb makes perfect sense in this particular lineup. So let's jump over to tier 3. We have Tony Pollard, who is just, playing out of his mind lately. Ramondre Stevenson, Dalvin Cook, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So what's your thoughts on these players in tier 3?
Well, first thought is that Tony Pollard had a monster game last week.
Right.
And he's got to get monster ownership this week.
Right.
And he's not projecting that well off the bat. All 3 other players are actually projecting a little higher. So you might get your cake and eat it too with a higher projected player and lower ownership.
Right.
So if we're playing, the other thing is Zeke has the injury tag. So if Zeke is ruled out, those projections might actually go up for they will go up on Tony Pollard.
Right.
So keep an eye out on the Zeke news. If Zeke is playing, I'm probably fading Tony Pollard. That might come back to hurt me big time, but I'm just gonna fade him. He's gotta have too high ownership.
Okay. So if you're fading Tony Pollard, my favorite personally in this tier is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's still getting a ton of targets. He just needs to get in the end zone, I think, to really hit that ceiling game. I also think Dalvin Cook could be lower owned coming off kind of a stinky game last week. So who's your favorite play for tournaments in this tier?
Oh, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yes.
He doesn't get that much ownership every single week, and he's he's getting targets.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's pull up his box score, because I mean, if we just take a quick look at at the targets, last 4 weeks, 10, 9, 11, 8, I mean, he only cracked the 100-yard bonus once, but because his ADOT is shorter, but he if he is going to get 8 to 9 catches, I think the 100-yard bonus is in range. And again, he just needs to get in the end zone.
Exactly. And he will eventually.
Exactly.
So, and as of now, he's the highest projected player in that tier, probably getting the least ownership. So
that's incredible leverage.
It's a no-brainer for me, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Absolutely. Okay.
In the highest total game.
Right. Of course, that's also a benefit as well. Okay, so over to tier 4, and that's another nuance that we didn't really talk about in the strategy show, but you'll notice in tiers, there's only one quarterback tier. And then that's why as the skill position player tiers go on, they get a little weaker. And that's why we talked about in the short slate strategy show that in tier 6, it gets incredibly really boom bust. So we're heading over to tier 4, and we have Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, both running backs from Detroit, Gabe Davis, Devin Singletary, and Ezekiel Elliott with the Q tag. So obviously pay attention to that. The thing with Elliott that I've noticed, Remy, is when he is playing, he gets those high value touches, around the goal line, but he's getting, I think 12 to 15 carries, but the efficiency is a little So, I don't think he's a threat to really get the 100-yard bonus. Is he going to get 2 touchdowns? So I don't know. What do you think Zeke's ownership would be? Because he could be one I could easily fade, just because I think he needs to get 2 touchdowns to hit his ceiling. What's your thoughts on that?
I hate those 5 players. I hate running backs that share the workload.
Exactly.
I just avoid them most of the time. It could have been brutal last week when Jamal just fell in the end zone 3 times.
Right.
That was horrible.
Right.
Zeke is a shadow of his old self.
Right.
He doesn't have that much upside. Can he get the goal line work? Yes. He could get 2 touchdowns, and that might be all he needs. What I like about our lineup so far is we're not using Josh Allen and we don't have Diggs. So if that game goes off, which probably will, those points need to go to somebody.
Exactly. I know where you're looking.
So yeah, I'm going with Singletary.
Okay, very nice. So I was going to say Gabe Davis or Singletary, but
Gabe Davis. Yeah, the thing that hurts is if Gabe Davis has a monster game where he gets, another 100-yard. Those are few and far between. But let's say he does get 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen gets 2 touchdowns.
Right. Exactly.
So your Gabe Davis gets a touchdown, and you're losing ground to people.
Right.
So that's what I hate.
Right. Gotcha. But like you said, that's what you can get some ownership leverage too. If you do kind of play an unstacked receiver, that can be something you can do on short slates, right? I mean, is that something you'll do a little bit, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. But we talked about earlier how Buffalo might be running a little bit more. And especially if they're playing from ahead, you'd have to think that. So you like Singletary the best in this tournament lineup?
Yes, absolutely. They're a 10-point favorite.
Right.
9.5. So they might get an early lead and just, run out the clock.
Right.
Singletary.
Right. It kind of correlates with Amon-Ra St. Brown too. Detroit will be throwing, Buffalo will be running. I think it all tells a good story in this lineup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's head over to tier 5. And as you can see, you have a few more players here. We've got Jacoby Myers, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen, Damian Harris, Darius Slayton, Dawson Knox, and Dalton Schultz. So we've got a mix here of, tight ends, running backs, receivers. So what are your thoughts here with all that in mind?
That's a weird one.
This is the tier I'm struggling with the most, actually.
Yeah, same here. The New England Minnesota game is not projected to go very well. Not a lot of points. You might get some buy low opportunities on the 2 Minnesota Vikings players after the poor outing they had last week. It was really embarrassing. You could go with, and let's say TJ Hawkinson and Thielen go off. It doesn't hurt you as much as Gabe Davis and Josh Allen going off, because Kirk Cousins are going to probably end up with 5% ownership. So like I mentioned earlier, you get Gabe Davis, he scores 3 touchdowns, you lose ground to people who have the stack. That might not be the case if you're using Thielen and Hawkinson, because you're only 5% of the people actually have that stack. Maybe even less. So you could play the 2 Minnesota Vikings players who won't get high ownership.
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe even Dawson Knox. They're all in play. I might. Well, it all depends on what we do with tier 6. If we play Schultz, that will change our options for tier 6. But I wouldn't. I
assume you think Schultz would be the highest owned, correct?
Maybe. I don't have a read on the ownership for tier 5 right now.
Right.
I think Damian Harris will get the least ownership.
Yeah.
The other one, that might actually be spread out.
I think it could be spread out. I actually, my favorites in this tier are Schultz, Damian Harris for ownership leverage. I think, New England's just going to run a lot. Both running backs, are going to get a lot of usage. So in my opinion, I like Schultz and Harris the best, but I also like Knox and probably the Vikings receivers, like you said, for leverage. That's kind of how I see it. I don't have a ton of interest in Myers and Slayton at first look here, or at early look here. So yeah, where would you go in a tournament lineup here? I'll let you pick.
If this was the main slate with 8 tiers, I definitely bring it back with Darius Slayton. I hope the game goes off. The odds of that game going off are maybe not as high.
Right.
Slayton might still be in play. The question I'm asking myself is, if we do a game stack with Slayton, is that lineup going to be duplicated? Are there other people who are having the same thoughts?
Which you talked about that in the strategies, right? Yeah.
So not a lot of people game stack, but the ones that do all have the same lineups.
Right.
So yeah, so that's the caveat we're facing right now. I don't think there's a wrong answer with this tier. They're all in play.
Right.
We could go with Schultz since we have Dak Prescott. He's not necessarily there's not a lot of negative correlation with CD Lamb.
Right. And I mean, I think if Dak Prescott, if you hope he's the highest scoring, receiver or quarterback, then, hopefully his touchdowns are going to CD Lamb and Dalton Schultz. So I like that. So we won't fill in tier 6, but let's talk through tier 6. So we've got, and this is where we talked about it in the short slate strategy show, tier 6 gets super interesting because some of these guys could get close to 0, or you could have a boom performance like last Thanksgiving. Deshaun Jackson was in tier 6 and, caught a long bomb, I think, for a touchdown and was clearly the highest scoring player in tier 6. So we've got Isaiah McKenzie, Devontae Parker, he does have a Q tag, Michael Gallup, Khalif Raymond, Nyheim Hines, Alexander Madison, James Cook, and Matt Breida. So talk me through what you're thinking in this tier for tournaments. And you can mention any like cash or single entry type favorite plays as well.
Yeah, this was also tough. Matt Breida is probably a no-go for me. He's too low. I might play him with the Josh Allen big stack just to get different. The fact that we're using Dak and CD, we might getting already not a lot of differentiation, maybe just enough. So might not be worth playing Matt Breida with the players we currently have.
Right.
I would definitely play Michael Gallup if we hadn't played Schultz. So if we instead of playing Schultz, we would have played, I don't know, a Thielen. I would have definitely brought it back with Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup did not have a good game last week. I think he's getting 4 to 7 targets per game.
Yeah, he's not doing much with them lately, but that can change at any week. That's the kind of stuff where you can get some leverage by
4 7 targets.
Yeah,
it's okay. He doesn't need to score 3 touchdowns to get there either. He could just
in this tier
he doesn't even need to score a touchdown. I think he get 4 receptions for 40 yards and actually might get there. He gets everybody else.
Right.
So I have to keep that in mind.
It's all within the context of the tier, right?
Right, exactly. So if we're not playing Schultz, we're playing Gallup. We are playing Schultz, so we could just forgo Gallup. Khalif Raymond, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say
again. See that always.
Let me ask that. Would you do 2 tier? Because that does intrigue me. If you think that game highest total, again, we talked about stacking it, but you aren't stacking it with the high-owned Josh Allen quarterback. If you think Detroit's playing from behind, what do you think about 2 receivers from the same team in a short slate tiers? What's your thoughts on that? Just in general, not necessarily specifically to ASB and Raymond.
Everything makes sense. It might not seem like it does, but that actually might be a good lineup. We'd have to run that game a million times to actually make a good decision on whether or not it's positive EV.
Right.
That might be a winning lineup. I don't know.
I think it's interesting. I mean,
like I say, just a quick word, maybe just like I mentioned with Gallup, he doesn't need 2 touchdowns. He's just 4 catches, 3 catches, 40 yards. That might be enough. So he could be in play.
Okay. So if you were only running like 3 tournament lineups, who would be like, let's just say your 3 favorite plays in this tier?
Definitely Michael Gallup, Khalif Raymond, and Isaiah McKenzie. Problem with Isaiah McKenzie, he's probably going to garner the most ownership in that tier.
Right. What about do you think James Cook will be lower owned?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If we didn't, I wouldn't play him with Singletary, but I just wanted to point him out as another play that I do like in this tier. If I wouldn't play Singletary and Cook, that one doesn't make as much sense to me. But if he has been getting, kind of his attempts have been ramping up a little bit. Now, I don't know if the 11 was an outlier or not, but if he gets, even I'd say 7 to 9 attempts, I think, that's pretty interesting in this tier. So he's another one I do like in this tier, but again, I wouldn't play him with Singletary.
Sure, the game goes off. Detroit doesn't score any points. Singletary might not even touch the ball in the fourth quarter. He might just hand it off to James Cote.
Right. Okay.
So and that's where you get your leverage. So yeah, all players are in play.
Right.
You got to roll the dice.
Right. Who do you think of the guys we mentioned? So we talked about liking, we just talked about Cook, Raymond, Gallup, McKenzie. Of those 4, who do you think will be the lowest owned? Because that's very important in this tier.
Did you mention Cook?
Yeah. So Cook,
definitely
Cook, Raymond, Gallup, McKenzie. Who do you think will be the lowest owned of those 4?
Cook.
Okay. Gotcha.
Cook.
Okay.
By a fair margin.
Okay. Interesting. All right. I think we covered these, the Thanksgiving tiers and talked it through pretty well. Please leave a comment and let us know how you think we did. Any other final?
Good.
I was going to say before we get out of here, Remy, any final thoughts for the people on the Thanksgiving slate itself?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You want to keep an eye out on the start times. The start times are very important. So the fun thing about fun, I don't know if it's fun for everybody, but you got to spend some time in front of your computer on the Thanksgiving slate. Yeah. You might not be
just go away from the family for a little bit. Exactly. Take some breaks from the family.
Look at my lineups. So yeah, it's very important because you can late swap. Say you can late swap for 2 reasons. Say you're in second place, everything is going really well. You're in second place and you have 1 player left in tier 6, for instance.
Right.
And the player in front of you also has a player left in tier 6. And you have a good feeling that he has Isaiah McKenzie, and you also have Isaiah McKenzie. Well, you're drawing dead, so you gotta want to late swap to at least a lower owned player. So keep in mind, Isaiah McKenzie isn't a good example since he's in the early game, but the late games you have Devontae Parker and Matheson. Devontae Parker could get some ownership. So if say you're drawing dead and you have Devontae Parker, switch off to Alexander Matheson.
That's a great point.
Might not make a lot of sense, but you're drawing dead anyways, so you're gonna want to do that. The other reason, and the reverse is also true. So let's say you're ahead and you have some low. If you have Matt Breida and he's the only player left, well, switch off Matt Breida and eat the chalk.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And you want to reassess all your lineups to make sure you're not drawing dead to your own lineup. So you might have want to fidget around and get the most exposure and make sure you're not drawing dead to your own lineups.
Right. How do you, this has just popped up. How do you do that with so many different lineups? Are you just opening your lineups page or do you have any tools that help you with that?
There are some tools available. I've built my own model in Excel. It's nothing really complicated. It's something I've improved over the years. I download the CSV, look at the ownership, copy and paste in Excel, and I see all the ownership and all the points the players have so far in the game.
Wow.
And I go row by row, so I could filter tier 1. Okay, Josh Allen will filter Josh Allen, see which I'll make combinations. So let's say, I don't know, Josh Allen goes off and DeAndre Swift goes off. Right. I'll just filter off Allen, Swift, and see where I can play swap. Where am I drawing down to my own players? So yeah, Excel is a great tool. It might seem, if you're not too familiar with Excel, I think it's the best tool if you want to learn DFS. You don't need to be a master. You just need just the basic functions and lookup functions and stuff like that, and you'll be fine.
Right. No, I just find that super interesting. So especially with people that have so many lineups, like how to make those swaps. But Remy makes a great point that, maybe take a little break for the family for a minute in between each game and just assess your lineups, look where you can make those changes to make sure that you aren't drawing den or that you are giving yourself the best chance for the most positive EV, right?
Right.
All right. Well, Remy, thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome. He was so kind to join me for a full slate strategy, and we broke down tiers a few weeks ago. We did, again, a short slate strategy. Please check that episode out. And now you've got Thanksgiving tiers. I think, Remy, we're going to have to come back for like playoffs or something, because this has been fun.
Yeah, I'll be glad to be on anytime. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no, this has been a ton of fun. So again, check out Remy at Remy Cote on Twitter. Look for him at the top of the leaderboard on Thursday. Be sure to check out fanspeak.com. On Wednesday and Thursday, I will have my favorite plays and kind of my core plays in each tiers, similar tiers article. Check that out. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Good luck. Hope to see you all at the top of the leaderboard too. And we will see you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.